Hey guys, so we'll be continuing from setting up the database with setting up our data model in our project so that our web application knows about the database. Alright, just as a reminder, we have controllers, we have models, and we have views. So the models are the database, let's say the mimic files that look like the database structure, and they help us to communicate with the database through entity framework. So if we look into this folder, we'll see that there are a few models because we actually created our project using the individual accounts authentication option. If you didn't do that, that's fine. But what we're about to do is add an entity framework diagram to our project. So we just right click this folder, models. We click add. We go to new item. Then we look for the subcategory that says data. And then we select our ADO.NET entity data model. We can give it a name that is suggestive of what we're doing. So we can say school management. And I'd like to call mine DB model. After doing that, we click add. When we get this wizard, we want to leave it on the EF Designer from database because we're doing our database first approach. So we leave that one selected, click next. And then we'll be prompted to connect to the instance that our database was created on. If you remember, we created it on our MS SQL local DB, which means I need to go to do connection. Then put in the server name. In this case, mine is local DB MS SQL local DB. Now you could click this drop down if you have more than one instances. That would probably increase the load time depending on how many instances you have, and if you're on a network, it's going to search everything, so that will actually take a while. So if you know it by heart, it's easier to just type it in. And then once you do that, you select authentication. In this case, our authentication is Windows authentication. And then we select our database from this drop-down list. And our database is School Management DB. Then we click OK. And then we'll see that the connection string adjusts a little bit. And if we look at the connection string, we'll see that it's really just English. So when you get all of these characters and symbols out of the way, it's really just English. It's saying connection string equals, and the data source is our server that we just typed in. All right. Our initial catalog is the database that we selected. And then you have some other things: integrated security true, multiple active result sets true. And then the engine behind it is our entity framework. So once we're satisfied with this screen, we can just click next. Then it will ask us what objects from our database would we like to include in our project. Now, so far, we only created 3 tables. So you can just click that box, or if you have other objects that you probably don't want to include, you probably want to drill down and select them one by one. All right, and then we click finish, and then this will take a while to load. All right, so once that is completed, you'll be led to a screen that looks similarly to this. You should see course, enrollment, and students, or any table that you have created in that database that you specified. You'll get this data entity diagram. So if we drill down into the files that are associated with our EDMX, or data model diagram, we'll see here that we actually have some CS files, some C# code files with the same names that correspond here. All right. And if you were to open those and take a look, you notice that they're really just class files with a bunch of attributes and random looking code that was generated. But then if you pay attention to the properties, you'll notice that these properties are directly representing the fields coming from the database. All right, so you have course ID, like we created. You have title, like we created, and then credits, and we made credits nullable in the database. So we have a nullable integer property type right here. All right. And then you see that there is also an included list of the related enrollments. So remember, we have a foreign key from enrollments to course. So Entity Framework is generating the fact that, okay, if there's a foreign key relationship, then I'm going to include a list of the enrollments that this course, any particular course, would be involved in. All right. So Entity Framework is making it much easier for you to manage your relationships and your associations at the database level. But more importantly, this EDMX diagram creates that bridge between our internet application or web application and our database. So that is how you go about adding the data model to your project.